Most people think getting richer is about spending less. But what if the real problem is that we don't know what spending is for? What if being responsible has quietly become staying small? And what if that's why the money never seems to follow? Welcome back to The Passive Path. Today we're talking about a tricky idea, learning the skill of spending, not as impulse, but as a tool. I'm joined by a fictional guest, an invented thinker who represents the ideas from a monologue I read recently about levels of spending and why frugality alone doesn't create wealth.
Glad to be here. And just to set expectations, this isn't about telling people to blow money to feel rich. It's about understanding that money has jobs. When you don't assign a job, it either disappears or it sits still and your life stays exactly the same. Spending can be a leak or it can be a lever. The difference is intention, timing, and what you're buying.
Let's start with the misconception. People repeat these one-liners. Poor people buy flashy stuff. Rich people are cheap. Or rich people buy knockoffs. What's wrong with that picture?
It confuses surface behavior with underlying strategy. Yes, some wealthy people are low-key. And yes, some broke people overspend. But the deeper truth is simpler. Saving is not a wealth plan by itself. Saving is a buffer. It's a seatbelt. It prevents disaster. But it doesn't move the car forward. Wealth usually comes from something else, increasing earning power, buying assets, building a business, owning equity, or compounding skills. So if someone is saving hard but never building leverage, they can stay trapped, safe, but stuck.
So the problem isn't saving. It's thinking saving is the finish line.
Exactly. And there's another twist. Many people are saving in a way that drains energy. They're constantly saying no to everything they enjoy, but they're not saying yes to anything that grows them. That creates a life where money is the boss. You don't feel in control. You feel managed.
The transcript's original idea was kind of provocative, that some poor behaviors are actually the safest behaviors, and that safety can become a cage. How do you say that without sliding into nonsense?
By staying concrete. If you earn $2,500 a month and your rent is $1,400, your problem isn't that you sometimes buy coffee. Your problem is that your biggest line items are fixed and your income has no growth plan. Cutting coffee might help you feel disciplined, but it won't change the structure. Meanwhile, the most powerful spending decisions are often boring and big: where you live, what you drive, who you marry, what you learn, what you build, what you own.
That hits. The transcript also talked about not looking at the menu price or always paying for meals. Is that actually wisdom or just flexing?
It can be either. If someone stops noticing prices because their cash flow is strong and their priorities are clear, fine. But if someone stops noticing prices because they're avoiding reality, that's not wealth, that's denial. The mature version is, you know your numbers so well that you don't need to stare at every price tag. You've already decided what categories you spend freely on and what categories you spend tightly on.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. Imagine two people who both make $6,000 a month. Person A is careful, but it's random. They nickel and dime small purchases, then blow $2,000 on something emotional twice a year. Person B spends aggressively on two things: health and skill. Gym, sleep setup, better food, courses, coaching, tools. But person B is ruthless about everything else. No lifestyle creep, no surprise subscriptions, no mindless shopping. Person B looks free in the important areas and boring everywhere else. Over time, person B's income rises and stress drops. That's strategic spending.
So learn to spend means learn to allocate.
Exactly. Spending is a form of decision-making. And the quality of your spending decisions reveals what you actually believe about your future.
The transcript made a claim like, if you believe you can create a big future, why would you save so hard today? That sounds motivating, but also risky. How do you interpret it responsibly?
I translate it like this: don't confuse fear with prudence. Build a safety buffer, yes. But after that, if all your financial behavior is driven by what if everything collapses, you'll never invest in the very things that prevent collapse. There's a middle ground. You can be safe and still be expansive. Practically, emergency fund, insurance, low interest debt only if it's controlled, and then intentional investment into assets or earning power.
Let's talk about the idea of spending for a feeling. That phrase can be dangerous because marketers love it.
True, but the deeper meaning is psychological. People don't take action when they feel powerless. When someone spends on something that increases confidence, clarity, or capability, they show up differently. But the rule is the feeling must translate into behavior. If you buy a nice outfit and it makes you feel confident, but you still avoid every opportunity, it's just costume. If the outfit helps you walk into meetings, network, pitch, negotiate, and you actually do it, the purchase becomes part of a system.
So the feeling is not the goal. The behavior changes the goal?
Exactly. Think of it like this. Some purchases by comfort, some by status, some by time, some by competence, and some by access. Comfort is fine in moderation. Status is dangerous if you can't afford it. Time, competence, and access often pay you back.
Can you turn that into a simple framework people can actually use?
Yes. Here's a practical spending ladder, simplified and less mystical than the transcript. Level 1 is survival spending. Rent, food, transportation, basic needs, goals, stability. The trap here is chaos. Late fees, overdrafts, payday loans. Level 2 is relief spending. Little treats to cope with stress. This is where many people live. Reward, guilt, repeat. Level 3 is leverage spending. You spend to increase income or reduce time. Tools, learning, childcare to free time, moving closer to work, software that saves hours. Level 4 is asset spending. You buy or build things that produce cash flow or equity over time. Index funds. A business, equipment used for paid work. Level 5 is relationship spending. Not bribery, investment in trust, generosity, making other people's lives easier in a way that's healthy and bounded. Level 6 is stewardship spending. You deploy money to improve systems, your family's stability, your team, your community. You play longer games.
That maps to the transcript's levels, but it's grounded. Now, one of the spiciest parts in the transcript was borrowing. It talked about borrowing for things like a car or property, and even implied some people borrow for luxury as image. I want to handle this carefully. What's the sane version?
The sane version is debt is a tool, not a lifestyle. Debt is only useful when it has a clear, realistic path to repayment, and it funds something that either grows value or increases earning power. For most people, borrowing to buy consumer luxury is a trap. Borrowing for an asset can be rational if the numbers work, the risk is manageable, and you have buffers. Borrowing for a car can be rational if the car directly increases income, like delivery, sales territory, or a job that requires reliable travel, and you're not buying ego. But buy a nicer car to feel confident is not a plan unless the confidence produces measurable results, and you can still pay your bills if results take longer.
So don't romanticize leverage. Use it when the math, the risk, and the purpose are clear.
Exactly. And there's a simple test. If the purchase doesn't help you earn more, save meaningful time, or build equity, be cautious, especially if debt is involved.
I also want to address this social point. The transcript said something like, rich people tip, they spend to activate positive energy, and that changes outcomes. What's the rational interpretation?
It's about reciprocity and human systems. People want to live in a world where others care. Small acts of generosity, done consistently and without drama, build relationships, reputation, and goodwill, not in a transactional, I tipped you so you owe me way. More like I'm the kind of person who leaves situations better. That affects how you're treated, yes, but it also affects who you become. You start acting like a person with agency. That matters.
So the energy is basically behavior, identity, and social feedback loops.
Exactly. When you treat people well, you often get better service, better information, better opportunities. Not always, it's not magic. But over time, it compounds because humans are networks.
I want to go back to something you said earlier. Money has jobs. If someone listening is currently overwhelmed, debt, low income, no room, what should they do first?
First, stabilize. Your first job for money is reducing chaos. If your finances are a constant emergency, you can't think long-term. So list your fixed costs. Cut the truly wasteful recurring stuff. Renegotiate what you can, and build a small emergency buffer, even if it's tiny. Then, shift to the growth job. Pick one income lever, a skill that pays more, a side service, a certification, a portfolio, a job move. Your next spending should support that lever. Tools, training, transportation, time blocks.
That's a big difference from just save more.
Exactly. Saving without growth is like holding your breath to win a marathon.
Let's make it real. Give me a story example. Someone who spent their way into a better situation without being reckless.
Imagine someone named Min. Min works support ops, makes okay money, feels stuck. Min saves by avoiding everything, but income never changes. Min decides to spend $400 on a structured course and $60 a month on a tool, and cuts 2 subscriptions to fund it. For 3 months, Min builds a small portfolio and applies for internal roles. It's not glamorous, but it changes capability. Min gets a new role with 1,000 monthly increase. That one spending decision turns into a permanent income lift. That's leverage spending, not buying pleasure, buying a new earning identity.
I like that phrase, earning identity, because the transcript kept returning to a theme: people stay poor when money equals fear, and the way out is changing mindset plus actions. But mindset alone doesn't pay rent.
Exactly. Mindset is the steering wheel, not the engine. The engine is skills, systems, relationships, and assets. The steering wheel matters because it decides where you allocate resources, but you still need the engine.
Another claim in the transcript: poor people buy tangible things, rich people buy intangible things. What does that look like in everyday life?
It means rich people often buy freedom and optionality. They buy time by outsourcing tasks. They buy simplicity by paying for quality once instead of cheap replacements repeatedly. They buy learning by paying mentors, books, environments. They buy access by attending events, joining communities, being in rooms where opportunity flows. It's not that tangible things are bad. It's that intangible returns often compound. Skills, health, network, reputation.
That makes sense. Now let's talk about assets versus liabilities. The transcript said something like, a thing can become an asset if it creates opportunities, even if it looks like a luxury. That's controversial.
It is, and it's easy to abuse. The clean version is an asset is something that reliably produces value over time. Usually that's cash flow or equity, but it can also be measurable career value. A laptop used for freelance work is an asset. A laptop bought for vibes is a liability. A wardrobe used to show up in client meetings can be an asset if it supports revenue-generating behavior. A wardrobe bought to impress strangers while your bills are late is a liability.
So the object isn't automatically the category. The category is your system and outcomes.
Exactly.
Let's do a quick diagnostic for the listener. If someone feels like they're always broke, what are the most common traps?
3 traps show up constantly. Trap 1, focusing on small expenses while ignoring big decisions. You fight over coffee, but you never negotiate rent, never improve income, never change the environment. Trap 2, emotional spending cycles. Stress triggers purchases. Purchases trigger guilt. Guilt triggers more stress. Trap 3, no allocation. Money arrives and has no plan. It becomes reactive. Bills, cravings, emergencies. The fix is boring. A simple allocation system plus one growth project.
Give a simple allocation example.
One example, split money into 4 buckets. Survival, bills and essentials. Buffer, emergency and true irregular expenses. Growth, skills, tools, investments. Business, joy, guilt-free enjoyment within a cap. The point is not perfection. The point is that joy exists, but it's bounded and growth has a guaranteed seat at the table.
I want to push back on something. Sometimes people hear spend on growth and they buy courses forever. They're always learning, never earning.
Great pushback. Learning becomes procrastination when there's no output. Here's a rule. For every dollar you spend learning, you should spend time shipping. Publish the portfolio, apply for the role, pitch the client, build the product. Otherwise, the course becomes entertainment. And the real spending level you need is not the ability to pay for information. It's the ability to turn information into income.
That's a clean line. Let's talk about relationships and generosity again, because I think that's one of the more interesting parts. The transcript suggested giving tips or small gestures that change how people feel, which then changes how they act. How do you do that without being manipulative?
By doing it as a practice, not as a trick. You give because it's who you are, not because you want a specific outcome. You keep it proportionate. You don't create dependency. You don't flash it. You can do it in a simple way. Be the person who thanks people, who respects labor, who makes others feel seen. Money is one vehicle for that, but not the only one.
Okay. Another theme was confidence in facing zero, like being okay with starting over. That can sound reckless, but I think there's something useful.
There is. The useful part is psychological resilience. If you believe you could rebuild, you take smarter risks. If you believe you'd be ruined forever, you avoid all risks, including good ones. The goal is not to romanticize poverty. The goal is to build skills, relationships, and health. So even if money drops, your capacity remains.
That ties back to spending on competence, because competence is portable.
Exactly.
Let's do a rapid-fire practical segment. A listener asks, should I buy the nice thing I want?
3 questions. 1, does this purchase create ongoing value, or is it a one-time dopamine spike? 2, can I buy it without harming my buffer or my growth budget? 3, will it change my behavior in a way that improves my life, not just my image? If the answers are yes, it might be a good purchase. If the answers are unclear, wait 72 hours and revisit.
Another listener asks, I'm ashamed that I care about status.
Status is human. The problem is not caring. The problem is paying for it with your future. If you want status, earn it. Build something. Learn something. Contribute something. And if you spend on presentation, keep it proportional and purposeful.
Another one, I'm stuck in the relief spending loop.
Then you need 2 things: friction and replacement. Friction, remove one-click buying, delete shopping apps, separate your spending accounts, make it slightly annoying to spend. Replacement, add a low-cost habit that gives relief: walking, lifting, journaling, talking, a hobby, anything that doesn't cost you tomorrow.
Now we should close by pulling it together. If you had to summarize the core idea of learning to spend, what would you say?
Spending is not about proving you're rich. It's about assigning money to the job of building a better life. At the lowest levels, money is fear and survival. At higher levels, money becomes leverage, relationships, and stewardship. The move is not spend more. The move is spend on the things that compound.
I'll summarize it like this. Saving is protection. Spending can be creation. The question isn't how do I look rich, it's what am I building? If your spending doesn't build skill, time, access, or assets, it should be questioned. And if your saving never turns into investment, it becomes a cage.
That's it. Thanks for having me.
And to the listener, keep it calm, keep it practical, and keep walking the passive path.